The expedition took place in 1914 and was an attempt to make the first land crossing of the Antarctic continent. On 5th December, Endurance departed for the Antarctic. Only 2 days later, the crew encountered the first ice packs. For the next 17 days, the ship's progress was frustratingly slow, until on 22nd December leads opened up, and the ship was able to keep going, taking the party deep into the Weddell Sea. A decision they will later regret. The ice packs became so thick they were stuck, and on 24th of February Shackleton realized they would be holding the ice through the winter. And now comes the worst part. Because of the ice packs movement, the ship was beginning to get crushed. Now, that's definitely not a place I would want to be without a ship. After the loss of the ship, they abandoned the old plan, and the main priority was to survive. Shackleton's intention now was to march the crew to the west. Eventually, after a few stops here and there and a very long and full of obstacles path in the extreme conditions of the Antarctic, they did manage to reach the Elephant Island. The crew made camp on the island, but the island was rarely visited by whalers or any other ships, so the best chance to reach civilization was to travel to South Georgia. The new journey began on 24th of April 1916 and was made only by Shackleton and 5 others. The rest remained on the island. After 14 days and 800 miles, South Georgia was reached. But there was another problem. They were on the wrong side of the island, so they had to cross the unexplored island to reach the whaling station. So they did, and in the end, all 28 members of the crew got rescued and survived. On Christmas Eve 1971, Julian Kupke was on a plane that was struck by lightning. The plane began to disintegrate in mid-air, and Julian found herself still trapped to her seat. Her collarbone was broken, but she was alive, the only survivor of the flight, and now she found herself in the wilderness alone. Some candy was her only food. But she found a small stream and was able to keep herself hydrated. The maggots had infected her arm. After 9 days, she was able to find an encampment. She gave herself first aid, including pouring gasoline on the maggot's infection. A few hours later, lumber workers found her and took her to a more inhabited area, where she was airlifted to a hospital. Her story was eventually told in the 2000 documentary Wings of Hope by director Werner Herzog, who had a seat booked on the very flight before cancelling at the last minute.